Hello, everyone. I'm Robyn Grable, the founder of Talents Ascend and the Ascend Collective, and your host for Ascending Beyond Barriers. Welcome. Ascending Beyond Barriers is an inspiring podcast dedicated to showcasing the remarkable journeys of small business founders who have faced and overcome significant challenges on their path to success. Each episode delves into the personal stories of entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds, highlighting their unique experiences, struggles, and triumphs. Welcome back to the Ascending Beyond Barriers podcast, where we lift voices, share stories, and celebrate the incredible journeys of veterans, military spouses, and change makers who are breaking through barriers every day. Before we dive in, though, please subscribe, follow, rate us, all the stuff so that we can get more subscribers and share more of these great stories. And we thank you for supporting our mission of serving underserved talent across the country. Today's guest is Sam Westfall. I'm so super excited to share his story, and we are in for an inspiring conversation. So let's get started. Sam,
well,
thanks so much.
Set the bar pretty high there.
No, not at all. Not at all. So you've got an interesting story, though. So I looked up and some things that we'll talk about. So Army veteran, thank you for wearing that uniform. Thank you for your service there.
Cheers.
We won't be good friends in December when the Army Navy game is on usually, but
this weekend.
That's okay. Yeah. But we'll still be friends all the rest of the days. But tell us about your service in the Army.
So 7 years, served as a M1 Abrams tank mechanic. So working on big, heavy monsters. And that kind of covered everything from predominant MOS was tank mechanic, but that means I worked on everything from generators to Bradleys, 113s, Humvees, Hemmett's Hets, drove a M88 56 track ton recovery vehicle for a number of years. So worked as a recovery specialist for a while. Yeah, wow. Just a little bit of everything.
Yeah. But then you went into IT right after the Army. 20 years in IT. We'll talk about that as you transition into what you're doing now. But so that was an interesting, our work is all about helping veterans translate their skills into other careers. Going from mechanic to IT, I love that success story. So tell us about that.
So there was a bit of that. There's a component as a mechanic or as in maintenance that does translate into technology.
Okay. And yeah, of course.
So when you get into that technical troubleshooting of being a mechanic and working specifically, I worked on M1 A1s and M1 A2s, which were digital tanks at the time. They've gone even more so since then. But I worked on my arms are big enough, on a laptop, military grade laptop, to help troubleshoot the tanks. And so as I stepped out of the military and into civilian world, okay, well, what's the market look like? I had the opportunity of going into General Dynamics and going overseas before 9/11. And I figured, well, that's probably not the best pace. I was crushed by a tank, which is why I got out of the military. So taking that technology of troubleshooting and using that into the IT technology space was an easy transition.
Okay. All right. Well, I love that success story because that's not, and I may have to use that, Sam, because there's a lot of times people say, well, how hard can it be, transferring skills? And or sometimes they'll say it's super hard. There's no translation. There's no way I can be a mechanic in the Army and I can go to being in IT. But you described it perfectly that there is an aspect, and that's how we look at it. We break the occupations down into skills, not just title translators like a lot of services out there, but we really look at what you actually did in that MOS and that military occupation and the skills that come with that. So that's awesome. Sorry to hear about getting crushed by a tank. That could have not been pleasant for sure.
There was better days.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So 20 years in IT. Fast forward through those 20 years, and now you start the Archery N Motion. Is that that's the first one, right?
So stepped out of a 20-year long IT career. I needed something different.
Okay.
I've used archery as my personal therapy for a number of years.
Nice.
And so I decided, well, back up a step. My buddy and I went to an archery competition here in Colorado, and we shot the event. We get to the bar that afternoon. We're having a beer, celebrating and kind of recovering a little bit.
Yeah.
And we both were talking about, what was the event like? What did we like? What did we not like? What did we miss? And the conversation went down a path of, that event was really missing was a moving target. Well, in that conversation sparked something in me to say 20 years in IT, did some welding in the Army, know how to deal with steel because of all my time with tanks.
Yeah.
There's something to be had there. And so about 6 months worth of design, that transitioned into an entrepreneurial mindset and stepped away from that 20-year-long IT career to spun up Archery N Motion, which is the moving targets. And so that was a whole different adventure, to say the least.
No doubt.
I spent my first year while trying to integrate into entrepreneurial mindset. So going to networking meetings, kind of building that voice and figuring out how to even get onto podcast to have a conversation because it wasn't my strong suit. Went through a number of different veteran entrepreneurial programs. So whether it was Warrior Rising, Bunker Labs, Rosie Network, DAV Patriot Bootcamp, Boots to Business.
Yeah.
Ran through the gambit to figure out, okay, what do I need to learn or what do I not know about running a business? Well, there's a lot. And so going through all those different programs, I got little nuggets out of each one, and brought that into, okay, now I'm an entrepreneur. How do I figure out how to market and sell? Yeah. All right, well, let's take the moving target to a couple of events. So 2024, I took it across the country from Utah to Pennsylvania, from Wisconsin down to New Mexico, 16 archery events. Roughly 300,000 shooters had an opportunity to put an arrow in it. And while everybody enjoyed shooting it, not as many people wanted to spend money on it. Okay. It was too much of a novelty item for most. I have to play nice how I say this. There's a generation that does not agree with shooting at moving targets. They would prefer that animal is stationary and that, you've got a higher ethical chance of, from a hunting perspective, finishing that animal if it's stationary. And while I understand that, I would also say that if you're shooting at a moving target, you improve your odds of success, whether that animal's standing still or moving. Practice makes perfect, or practice makes better, depending on how you want to look at it.
Sure.
So going across the country with Archery N Motion 2024, towards the tail end of the year, I got to thinking about it. What's missing was certain events were focused on bow hunters, certain events were focused on the extreme shooters. But what was lacking was the opportunity for military and veterans that have never grabbed a bow, that don't have access to it. So I spun up Valor Archery Challenge, an opportunity for those that need archery as therapy to have that entry point into archery, come out, have some fun, use archery as therapy, use that as a detox or de-stressor tool. And then I integrated the moving targets into it just to make it more fun.
Nice. So I learned archery when I was growing up. My stepfather hunted and he used bow and arrows. And so he taught us, and it was not easy. It was not an easy thing.
It's a humbling sport.
Whoa. Wow. And I'm grateful. Both my oldest grand cherubs have been in scouts and they both have learned archery. And my oldest grandson, he's actually taking an archery class here in South Carolina. So yeah.
Very cool.
Very cool. I think it's very good for him for a couple of reasons. He's on the autism spectrum. And so he has to focus, right?
Yep.
And it's muscle strength too, because he's not a sports kid. He's not a big, muscular guy, but it takes strength to pull that bow
It's
back.
A whole different set of muscle groups.
Woo! Yeah, it is. My goodness. Okay, so explain a little bit more about the in motion stuff for those who don't do archery, don't understand. And I get the whole humane part of hunting. I get that, but kind of tell us a little bit more about what does the in motion mean?
So the visual picture of archery is a traditional bow, a long bow, a recurve, and you've got that archer at full draw and they're shooting at a circular paper target.
Yes. Okay.
Great. And that's a great starting point. What that repeated shot process, work on your form, work on your practice, and build that confidence level. Then it transitions over to 3D archery, and that's where this becomes a lot more fun. So now you've got a full-scale, life-size animal foam target. So whether it's a deer, a bear, a yeti, a penguin, a flamingo, there's all kinds of targets out there to choose from. And so a lot of the different archery events across the country have integrated into that 3D space, just because it's, from a hunting scenario, it's good practice. Sure. From a shot repetition and competition perspective, it's good practice. Well, I got bored shooting at stationary circular paper targets, and I got really bored shooting at 3D targets because things don't move and you're not changing the angle on it.
Yeah.
So transition that to where it's moving. And now you've got an animal that's, whether it's 2.5 miles an hour, 3 miles an hour, 4 miles an hour, it's moving. And that creates a whole different shot perspective of what your form, what your practice, and what your functional repeated process even looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I can imagine there's a lot more eye-hand coordination too, because you're not just staring at a target that is stationary, like you said, and doesn't move. And so you're just really focused on that middle point. I would also think that, and this is my uneducated opinion, but I would think that working with in motion targets would help you as a hunter, because you're, just a round target on a thing. At least you're like targeting something that looks like an actual animal. So why do you think they just aren't adopting it? They weren't.
So let's go one step further, and then I'll come back to your question.
Okay.
The shooting at that moving target also does one more thing at the physical and at the brain level of, you are now learning a little bit deeper knowledge and experience about your bow and your setup and how you shoot. Because not only do you have to think about how that animal's moving, you have to understand how that trajectory of that arrow is in flight as it goes out downrange to that target when it's moving.
And the wind and all the elements.
Everything comes into play, more so than what you're shooting at that even stationary 3D target.
Yeah.
Because, you understand your arrow's going to go out there, but it's stationary. You don't have to worry about it moving. You don't have to worry about that lead. You don't have to worry about what that looks like. Moving targets, all that comes into play, and you have to truly understand what you're doing to shoot that.
Yeah.
Don't hit the table. Now, back to your question about how does that kind of go, what's that look like getting into the hunting perspective? Shooting at 3D animals from a hunter's perspective, by the time I go out for a mule deer hunt, I've already taken my shot practice 15,000 times a year before I ever even go up into the woods to go chase an animal. So by the time I see that animal in the woods, that shot's already natural. It's already comfortable. I've already taken that, practiced it, and it's just let that arrow fly and let the process do its job.
Wow.
As long as the idiot behind the bow does his job, the bow will do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
The arrow will do what it's supposed to do, but the idiot has to do his job.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But back to that moving target. Now you've also practiced that. If that animal takes a step, if it steps behind a tree, you know how to draw and hold a little longer because you've already experienced that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're on the 3D archery perspective, most of the time they don't put animals hiding behind trees. No. Whereas I've got that moving target where I can stop it behind a tree, or I can stop it behind a deep scrub bush, so that it forces you to hold a little bit longer and make you think a little bit harder about what that shot's going to look like.
Yeah. Does archery, I would think, I saw a documentary, actually it was Chris Hemsworth he was learning to play drums, because there's something in your brain that when you have to use both sides of your, like your left and your right hand at the same time, there's something it triggers in your brain to help you learn, and you get a lot more smarter. I would guess that archery would do the same thing, because you are using both sides of your body to work with a bow.
Very much so. Recurve bow, to some extent, so for me, I'm right-handed, so the bow's going to go in my left hand. I'm going to push the bow out, and depending on what that grip looks like on the bow, will force that arrow to do wonky things as it's in flight. On the draw hand, on the string hand, I have a release, and so now I'm controlling what that release looks like. And even one of these little hairs gets in the way wrong, it can force that arrow to do something funky on the way out. So forcing both sides, the push out, the draw back, making sure everything's aligned, focusing on that pin, the target, and how that arrow is going to fly, creates just a whole different neurological network in your brain that changes things. For those that are in the military, veterans, and this is where the therapy comes in.
Yeah.
You have taken a firearm and shot at human silhouettes for a number of years, or even at people. Putting yourself back into that same scenario after the military may or may not be detrimental. For me, it was a struggle because every time I put a human silhouette downrange, it triggered something.
Sure.
Changing the focus, using a bow, using a flamingo target, there's no neurological connection in there. And so now it's just out there to have fun, but you're using that mental and physical focus to de-stress and just drop that anxiety down.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you for sharing that, Sam. There's a lot of trauma, a lot of moral trauma too.
Moral injury. Yep.
Yeah. Moral injury for sure that people they don't think about, they don't talk about, especially for veterans. So thank you for bringing that up. I love that. So the Archery N Motion, is that a for-profit company and you're selling
Yes.
the mechanical part of that? Okay. And then the Valor Archery Challenge, is that a nonprofit? Is that?
It is. It's still a for-profit.
Okay.
And I did that for a reason. Spending a number of years in corporate after the military in that IT space,
Sure.
I experienced a lot of things part of the reason what pushed me out into the entrepreneurial space is you have to do things this way and with this mindset or under this subject of rules. And by going with a for-profit instead of a nonprofit. So if I was nonprofit, I had to have board of directors that said what I could or couldn't do or how I could or couldn't do it, or you should partner with this, versus if I stick with a for-profit, I can do it my own way and I can really design it for what I think is best for the military and veteran community participants that come out to play. So instead of just having that animal at full broadside, I change it so it's hard quartering to or hard quartering away, which changes the focal point in your brain about how you have to angle that arrow.
Wow.
But most of those archery events will have it at full broadside because that's a comfort level for those. Mm-hmm. Again, I want to use that archery as a therapy. I want to force your brain to do weird things and make it so it just takes your normal day-to-day life out of the equation. You have to focus on that shot.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, that's amazing. So is the challenge, do you hold events? Tell us more about Valor Archery Challenge.
Sure. So for Valor for 2025, we had 7 events, mostly in Colorado, about 800 participants, 96 veterans served. Each one had a challenge coin issued to them.
Oh, that's awesome. Yay. Look at that. Love that.
So now the challenge coins went to the military and veteran community folks first. The civilian participants, if they paid for them, they got them. But for the most part, it was driven towards that military community. For 2026 now, we're already focused on 10 events, a couple of huge partnerships. I've got almost $16,000 worth of raffle prize sponsors. Yeah. So we're giving out a whole bunch of prizes at each event, making sure that everybody walks away with something. A new challenge coin will be developed and issued for 2026 events. We're partnered up with Golden Forge Veteran Retreat up in Guffey, Colorado. So it's a female Marine Corps veteran, 160-acre retreat space up in the woods. She's got plenty of property. She's got animals walking through it. So we're going to build out at least one event, if not 2 events up in her property. High altitude, deep in the trees, rugged hike. But that's kind of what it's all about is think of it like a golf course where it's but with bows and arrows. So you're going for a hike and you're just shooting at targets.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, congratulations on all of that. And
thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing. It's unique. How many have you, I'm sure you've done your research. Are there other organizations that are using archery as a therapy mechanism?
So there's a number of 3D archery events across the country. HHA USA is the only other one right now that's actively focused towards the military and veteran community, and they're based out of Wisconsin. Chris Ham is a great dude. Partnered up with HHA Sports, which is a product manufacturer, and so that's veteran owned. So he's got a great tie-in and hooks in there. Nice. But really, he's predominantly focused in that Wisconsin and surrounding state space. While I'm focused in Colorado for right now, my goal is to be able to grow and spread out to New Mexico, Oklahoma, Texas, Wyoming, South Dakota, and start to build it a little bit deeper, grabbing up veterans all across the country.
Absolutely. Do you foresee, because what's kind of the future? You mentioned it, but is there any thought of like having veterans come in from the East Coast to these events? Do they attend?
They
I guess they
do.
can on their own, right? Yeah.
Right. So this year, so for most of the events, again, focused in Colorado, I did have folks come up from Texas. I had folks come down from Montana, and I had a couple guys flew out from Indiana to come attend the events. So they packed up
Nice.
their bows, jumped on a plane, came out, and they just came out to play.
Good for
They both
them.
walked away with some great prizes. They had a lot of fun. They were made a comment about a little disappointed because they came out specifically for some of my steel challenges. Because again, that extreme focus of archery, when you put
Yeah.
steel plate or steel rib cages, it's designed to break arrows. And for the October event, there was a high fire danger in Colorado because it'd been dry for several weeks, hadn't rained, so I wasn't able to put any steel out on the course. But that's you play in the weather in Colorado.
Yes. It's probably January. It's probably 10 feet of snow out there already, I'm sure.
No. I mean, we had
Keep it.
7 or 8 inches of snow a weekend ago, but it's already
Yeah.
melted off.
Okay. Awesome. So this is about ascending beyond barriers, which you're doing. You're helping others who are, in need. So thank you for that. What's been one of the hardest challenges, and you kind of talked about it, I think, but what's been one of the hardest challenges in taking your passion? Because we have a lot of entrepreneurs that have a passion for something, but how do you build that into a business? What's your advice there?
So going through all the different the veteran entrepreneur mentorship programs that I've gone through, even been pulled into being an ambassador for now 3 years for IVMF and Bunker Labs.
Okay.
The one thing that I will say is while you might have a passion, you need to have a passion that you can make money from.
Right.
If you're not making money, it's just a hobby. And so that's where Archery N Motion, I really struggled with that. While it is still a business, it's still in play. Realize that, okay, I'm not making money off of this one. So how do I keep it? But how do I transition it pivot it to where it's going to be more profitable? And the answer was spin up Valor, incorporate Archery N Motion moving targets into Valor. And now it's a whole different experience because it really is an archery experience, not just an archery event.
Great point there. I love that. And it's such a good point because people want in this day and age, people want experiences. Mm-hmm. I think COVID did a lot for that too. And even though COVID's 5 years ago already, how did that happen?
Right.
I don't know. But it's like going to the movies. We used to go to the movies all the time. And now it's got to be an experience to go to the movies because of COVID. We stopped going and just the whole thing about it. But so congratulations. That's awesome that you've thought about that. You pivoted the business to think, how can I make money? And that's a very good point because like us, I mean, I love what I get to do to help veterans and military spouses and other underserved talent. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't make money, it's like I could just volunteer with another organization and not have the headache of, the business on top of me. So, because that's tough.
Exactly it.
Running a business and thinking about all the business stuff. So so as we close out, we're here at the end of our time. What's been one of your best success stories or one of your best experiences with a veteran who has come to one of the challenges or been with you in an archery setting?
So let's start with Danny, him and his son, 9-year-old son, have come. They went to, I believe, 5 of the events out of 7 for 2025. And Danny wrote me a wonderful email after the 3rd event and said, Sam, thank you very much. This is hugely helpful. I get to come out and enjoy it. It's a mental breakaway from my day-to-day life. I can integrate my son into it, who has now had an absolute great time shooting at the events. They went to a competitor event up here in Colorado, and it was a 3-day event. And apparently at the end of day 1, the son said, I'm bored with this. We can go back down to Sam's event whenever you're ready. And Danny had to tell him, hey, look, dude, we paid for 3 days. We got to shoot all 3 days. But yeah, they've been to at least 4 events, if not 5 events for this year. So, seeing that email, the thank you, the recognition, and what he felt about coming to the events was huge for supporting what I'm doing and made me reassured that I'm doing the right things.
Yes. Awesome. That's fantastic. Well, congratulations. That's a wonderful story. We're going to share all of your links and everything so people can find you. And, people that are listening, just really look into this, because I know how hard it is. My older self remembers how hard it was to learn to shoot a bow, and I got pretty good at it, but it takes practice. But it definitely will be good for you mentally, because you truly can only focus on what you're doing when you're
everything
shooting.
else drops to the wayside.
It has to, because you're taking everything into consideration that's around you, but you're focused on where that arrow is going to go and how your hands, and all the things. So Sam, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you,
Robyn. Thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us on Ascending Beyond Barriers. We appreciate you, because we know every story reminds us that potential deserves a pathway. So thank you for your support. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, and I don't see how you couldn't, please follow us, rate us, subscribe, do all those things so that we can share more of these great stories. Until we meet again, keep believing in your story, keep lifting others, and keep ascending beyond barriers.